make note of some of the questions, and then we can put them up in our blog and follow up afterwards. But Christina has a non-technical question for you about the organizations that are going to be looking at adopting different AI technology. So what infrastructure changes are needed for this type of adoption?
Well, I mentioned these things are possible through a cocktail of enabling technologies. And when it comes to infrastructure, and I'm thinking back to my time at the start of the Serious Games Institute, one of the things that was most important was to have the highest speed communications infrastructure and the best quality visual display and audio. So I think the infrastructure, particularly 5G and broadband, cloud computing, some what are called near field communications, which are able to track wearable technologies. And again, I think there's a lot of reluctance within the medical profession to trust these consumer devices like Fitbit and so on, because many of them, or most of them, are not medically validated. And yet, in reality, they're actually probably more accurate than a lot of tools that doctors and nurses use today. I know this myself because I've been using these devices and seeing how they've matured over a period of time. And one of the barriers to the infrastructure part of all of this is a reluctance of people who are developing consumer devices, and including this smartphones and mobile applications. They're reluctant to go for clinical validation and have people, both software and hardware, classified as a medical device for fear of litigation. Because if the data is interpreted by somebody like me, if I look at my smartwatch, it tells me to go for a run, and I've actually got a heart condition, it opens up all kinds of problems to do with this. But I think over a period of time, the most critical thing is the bandwidth, the 5G, the broadband, cloud computing, and AI, and AI particularly, and AI that is not Chat GPT. It is using AI with, if you like, properly validated databases. And as an example of this, I've been talking to a company about their use of artificial humans linked to artificial intelligence. And if you can imagine, the scenario is, and particularly it's targeting the pharmaceutical industry. So this is a solution that's been designed both for doctors and patients. So the idea is that you can connect to an artificial human who is almost indistinguishable from the real thing, and you can talk to them on your phone or on your computer with your voice, and you can ask them questions, and they will get the answers from clinically validated data. So this will be a service that's available 24/7. And I say, from a pharmaceutical industry point of view, it saves some of the problems that doctors might have. They don't want to see a pharmaceutical rep. Haven't got enough time to do with them, so they can access these kind of technologies and find the answers they need about the drugs and the treatments. And patients can do the same. So but these things will only be made possible if you've got the infrastructure, 5G, broadband, and AI that is clinically validated.
Yeah, that's interesting, David. Thank you for that. And Adrian has got another kind of non-technical question about the training. So we've got all these tools, we've got all this software, but what about training the people?
Well, I think training does not always depend on technology, but we have the tools, particularly with VR. And I mean, I know most people think when we talk about VR, we think about a virtual reality headset and an environment. But there's a lot of VR solutions in the early days that you can access on your smartphone or on your computer. So it's actually a virtual reality environment. And I think training is going to be much more personalised. Because the thing about AI and in education, one of the big values of it is not only that it can respond and answer your questions, but it can also detect and track your learning style and your competencies. And as a result of that, it can adjust the learning program to your capabilities and to your needs. And so I think this is a way, the way ahead is actually lead to 24/7 access to personalised learning experiences, which are based on a mixture of the person's interests and their competencies.
Right, we've got a can of worms now. We're going to talk about ethics. We've had an amazing question through from Denise. So, Anthony, what did Denise ask us?
Well, we're getting into quite a bit of a range of topics, and so the issues here now that Denise is concerned about is around the ethics of using the AI for service users or staff. What are your thoughts, David, about that?
Well, AI does open up a can of worms, as you say. There are a lot of ethical issues involved in this. And although in a hopefully light-hearted way, I showed an AI modified picture of Debbie and Skip at Bournemouth University. I could also have played you a video of Debbie singing "Staying Alive" by the Bee Gees. And
you're going to have to show it, aren't you?
No. I'm reluctant. I can show it, but I'm reluctant to show it. But this is the point: is that if you can create an artificial person based on their photographs, which what I do for fun for people, and then I get them to sing Gangnam Style or Staying Alive or James Brown singing I Feel Good. And to be honest with you, even though it is obviously not completely lifelike, it is very, very good. And when you think that you can make anybody say anything or sing anything just by having access to a photograph, there are clearly some significant ethical issues involved with that, which need to be addressed. My own personal view is, and I wrote a book on this over a decade ago, is I am very fearful. I'm very fearful of the future uses of artificial intelligence, because I think the human race is going to become far too dependent on these technologies. And my book is called Gadgets to God. It's not a religious book, but it makes the point that our relationship with technology is transformed from most of my life, growing up, certainly most of my life, human beings use technology as a gadget to empower them. So we were in control of the technology, and it needed human skills to be able to use the technology to get the best results. Today, we have already gone past the point where technology is actually using its knowledge and experience to influence us and to control us. And so we spend more time communing with our smartphones than we ever do in church or any other kind of religion. So if you think about what most people's view of a God, it's about an all-seeing, all-knowing entity in the sky that knows everything we do. He knows the secrets of our heart. It understands us perfectly, and it can influence our lives, and we spend time talking to it. Well, that's exactly what we do. We do that with our smartphones and our social media and all these other things. So there are some real ethical issues that need to be addressed. I'm not the only one who thinks. Even Elon Musk, he is warning about, and the guy who was developed AI for Google, he's recently retired, expressing views and doubts about the what's happening with AI. So my biggest fear is actually, I think we've gone past the tipping point. I don't think there's any way back from here. It's you cannot. It's just an example. Once the atomic bomb was invented, you cannot uninvent it. You're stuck with it. And it's the same with the internet. Once the internet has been invented, and once there's this demand from us as consumers to use it, you cannot uninvent it. And it's the same with AI and a lot of these other technologies. They're there. And how it's going to be managed and controlled in the future, I really don't know. I'm sorry to be pessimistic about this, but
that's a really good set of thoughts. And just a little note for staff at BU, I've got David's most recent book in my office if you'd like to borrow it. Right, okay. We're moving more on to healthcare again now. Didn't we have something about long-term health?
Yes, exactly, Debbie. We've got a question from Julie, first of all. And I think this question can be broadened into all of the different professions in healthcare. But she's concerned, will AI replace radiologists?
Well, I think if you look, what does a radiologist do? A radiologist uses devices, MRI scanners, and other devices to create an image of the inside of the body, and that task will remain. That won't go away. We need that kind of technology to be able to do that. But what will happen, I think, is that radiologists will. It's difficult to express this really, but radiologists won't need the same kind of skills and training to be able to use these devices. They will become, if you like, equipment operators. They will still have to use their expertise, I think, to act as a backstop in case to support AI. But I think what will happen is that radiologists will be a job. The job will remain, but it will be perhaps be part of a wider range of skills. So you won't have specialist radiologists. You will have people who are multi-skilled, capable of doing radiology. So where these technologies are where the tasks are better done by AI and other technologies, from a health point of view, if I were going for some treatment, I would rather have a diagnosis that's a good one, that's done accurately by a machine that is better than the human being, than actually rely on the vagaries of a human being. It's the same with robotic surgery. To give you another example, I spoke to a guy who got prostate cancer a few years ago, and he had robotic surgery in Australia, and the surgical outcomes of that were far better. It didn't have some of the undesirable side effects you can get from surgery on prostate cancer, because the surgery is more precise. But the surgeon was a trained surgeon, but it didn't need to be a fully trained surgeon. It need to be need to have the kind of manual dexterity skills that you'd expect from a surgeon. Need to have somebody who was good at operating the equipment and understood how to do that. I digressed, I think, there.
No.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That has kicked off a whole flurry of discussions and chat that we'll summarise and sort of send round later. And we're mindful that colleagues are rushing off to teach at 1, etc., etc. We'll make this the last question, but we will go through, and David has very kindly agreed that he'll answer any of the other questions. We'll do a little summary and things and send it round, and also we will share the recording, of course we will. So the last question was
this is from Johnny, and you're talking about like technical aspects, David, of AI, but what about in a situation where you're trying to manage long-term conditions? And what you really need is to have someone, who's coaching you. So is AI going to be capable of doing something like that?
Well, I think AI will be used in certain circumstances for certain types of conditions where it's appropriate. It can be used to supplement human skills. I'm thinking now, and I go back to VR2 Care, and one of my partners in Italy is a company called Rehability, and what they provide is technology that's based around games that help people to rehabilitate in their own home. So essentially, what you see in your own home, you look at a television set, and you can see an avatar which represents you, and you copy the exercises of the avatar. And whilst you're doing those exercises, data is captured about your freedom of mobility, your capability of performing these exercises. What are you improving? Are you not improving? And all of this data goes back to a trained physiotherapist in a hospital who can use that data to remotely manage that person. So it is not a technology replacing a person, it's technology enhancing the capabilities of a person and allow them to deliver remote care more effectively.
David, thank you so much. Carl, one of our clinicians, has had to go and deal with some of his patients before they revolt. But
well, I wouldn't like to be responsible for revolting patients.
A wonderful, insightful, just set of thoughts, insights, and comments about the way in which nursing may be changed with artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and all of the other disruptive technologies that you've so skillfully set out for us today. Colleagues, the recording will be available. We will do some blog posts, etc., etc. I've tweeted the key slides. If we can do virtual claps and waves, that would be very, very nice. Thank you all for coming. The next one is on the 12th of June at 12 o'clock, and David will be talking about the metaverse, health and well-being. So we really look forward to that. Brilliant.
Yep. And if you have any colleagues or friends that you think would benefit from the next webinar, we're at 60 people this time. Our goal is to try to increase our network. So please do contact everyone and invite them to join us in.
Brilliant. So we'll just kind of stay on screen while everybody's logging off. But thank you so much for coming, and lovely to see so many people here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your patience and your questions.
Thank you so much.